Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As we all know, HunterNet, well, I hope you know, HunterNet is an engineering and manufacturing cooperative based here in the Hunter, and we speak about innovation coming from collaboration. It's not what I'm going to talk about this afternoon, but I'll just give you a bit of an example that HunterNet has been involved with, myself particularly. We got an opportunity from Coal and Allied for a tender which required quite a number of companies to come together to satisfy that tender. I've been particularly happy and pleased to be walking through a process where we started with 8 companies, but finally 5 companies have signed an incorporated joint venture. That company is called Pentab Mining Services, and I hope you hear a lot about them in the future because they're very collaborative, they're very innovative, and by them, as we all know, by collaborating we get innovation. And just sitting in the room, listening, and as they developed this group, who came together, by the way, and pretty well nobody knew one another, to being now close friends, sharing ideas, and it's been a wonderful journey, so it can be done. But the reason I'm here this afternoon is to talk about a innovative program being run here in the Hunter Valley, called the Supply Chain Participation Project. So this afternoon you'll learn about HunterNet, who along with Coal and Allied are responsible here in the Hunter for that program, and you'll also hear from some participants in that program to get a perspective from the other side. Firstly, for those who don't know, who is HunterNet? Well, HunterNet is an engineering and manufacturing cooperative which was kicked off back here in Newcastle in 1992. At a time not dissimilar to what we're experiencing now. Newcastle, as a traditional heavy engineering industry, was not immune from the effects of economic downturns. These downturns were particularly hard-hitting for heavy industry, and we all know Newcastle has been a base for heavy industry for a long time. The early 1990s recession caused significant job losses across Australia. The Newcastle LGA experienced a peak unemployment rate of 17.1%, compared to 12.1% in New South Wales and 11% across Australia. So as you can realise, it was very difficult times. That same year, by the way, the Honeysuckle Development Corporation kicked off. It was established by the New South Wales Government to be the organisation responsible for the facilitation of honeysuckle, not dissimilar to the current urban growth project. It was due to these difficult times saw the introduction of HunterNet. By coming together, these companies could strengthen their businesses, promote the capabilities of the region and attract opportunities, as well as providing a common voice for government on behalf of the manufacturing sector. HunterNet commenced as a not-for-profit cooperative. It was made possible by some seed funding by the state government. HunterNet began with 13 founding members and has grown to over 200 today. One of the goals for HunterNet is to assist our member companies to improve their capabilities and to become globally competitive. To assist with this goal, we work closely with Enterprise Connect, who is the government agency who offers comprehensive, confidential advice and support to eligible Australian small and medium business to help them transform and reach their full potential. Well, back then, a government initiative that was supported by Enterprise Connect was buy Australian at home as well as abroad. It commonly became the Baha program, but we weren't allowed to call it that because this initiative set out to enhance the capability of Australian suppliers and link them to opportunities presented by major projects. The AIP National Framework, which was part of this program, sets out 4 strategic approaches to promote Australian industry participation. Encourage industry to meet world's best practice through capability building. Early identification of opportunities for Australian industry participation, both domestically and overseas. Promoting Australian capability and integrating industry into global supply chains. Enhancing project facilitation and Australian industry participation. The AIP National Framework represented an investment in Australia's future through supporting Australian industry to innovate, develop and enhance competitive capabilities and take advantage of investment opportunities. As a result of this program, a pilot project was initiated with Enterprise Connect called the Supply Chain Participation Project. This project set out to assist SMEs, i.e. small manufacturing enterprises, to gain a greater portion of the spend in the resource sector. The project was made up of two parts. The first part was some capability workshops on subjects such as understanding contracts, pre-qualification, safety management, to name but a few. The second part involved a panel session of industry experts brought together to provide guidance to assist SMEs in their quest to gain work opportunities in the resource sector. This was a question and answer style interview process that helped both the parties get a better understanding of the business and its goals. Prior to the panel session, an interview was arranged with the business and questionnaire was completed. The questionnaire was a tool to gauge the maturity of the business in such things as accreditations in safety, quality, environment, what sort of management systems they had in place. And the panel then used this information and information that was available on these websites to get a basic understanding of the business that would help them in providing support to these participants in the panel session. Back then, we were very fortunate we had having Rio Tinto Australia involved in this pilot program. They made available their New South Wales procurement manager, Greg Carson, to become involved with the program and to provide the feedback. But like all pilot programs, they come to an end. And it was at this stage that it was decided that we had to keep this program going. It was being so successful and we're getting such great feedback from the companies that participated. And it was about the same time that we got an opportunity through the Coal and Allied Community Fund to submit an application for funding. This application was successful and we were provided funding for a further 3 years. I strongly believe that this application was successful because from their involvement in the pilot program, Rio Tinto Australia has seen the benefit and the opportunity to meet great innovative small manufacturing enterprises here in the Hunter Valley that they would not have necessarily been able to do. The funded program was a little bit different. Obviously, they wanted some outcomes from this, being a large company, so they asked for a couple of other things to be done. So there was 3 basic tasks that we had to complete. The introduction of information sessions to the supply chain in both the open cut and underground mines. This assisted companies to understand where in the supply chain they fitted, so they were better able to respond to opportunities. They wanted us to roll it out to 2 other industry sectors. And this was a little bit funny, but they, being a community fund, I think they seen that they had to provide something back to industry. They wanted a model built of the process so it could be rolled out in any location and in any industry sector. So HunterNet thought about it and what other industry sectors would we involve. So we came up with the power generation, given that the Hunter Valley is home to the majority of the power generation here in the Hunter, and also clean technology as a new and emerging market. We are now currently halfway through that program, and up to now we had 50 companies participate. So as you can see, that's been a fairly major task. You may ask how has this program benefited these companies? So to provide feedback to this question, I invited 2 of the participants to be with us today to provide that feedback from an applicant's perspective. So I'd now like to ask Jenny Lee Taylor, General Manager of ATSA, and Boris Novak, MD of CE Solutions, to the stage to respond to some questions that I will ask them. Could you join me in welcoming Boris and Jenny? Well, you can come up here if you like, and I'll ask the questions from down here.
Well, there's an innovation for a start, no, Rob?
Okay, so I'm going to roll through some questions and get the feedback from Jenny and Boris, who have been involved in the program. So first, I'd like them to provide an overview of their company and the reason for participating in that program. So, ladies first.
You were just about to speak.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Jenny. I'm the General Manager of ATSA Defence Services in Newcastle. Basically, our company is in the business of keeping water away from electronics. We employ high-end electrical and electronic technicians and engineers, and have developed a whole business around the maritime space. I guess where we saw the benefit of participating in the program, and I think we may have been one of the pilot participants as well, Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, yeah, in November 2011, we recognised in our space that we were very maritime defence-centric. And due to all the external factors going on at the time, we realised that we needed to change this and to diversify in some way. Because we've been rather insular in that, we had no idea about anything else. So we popped our head up and had a look around, and we were looking at the time into mining, into rail, into oil and gas, in a whole number of sectors, and saw this opportunity saw this program as an opportunity to really shortcut getting an understanding of what we might be able to do in the mining sector. So that's basically how we started, and it was very beneficial.
CE Solutions is actually an abbreviation for Communications Electronic Solutions. So the industry sector we're predominantly in is defence, predominantly Air Force, but we also service Navy and Army. So we're a solutions company. We call ourselves a systems engineering company. To a lot of people, that doesn't mean a lot, so we say we're technology integration in the domain of communications electronics. So anything in that you can touch, whether it be electronics, communications, software, we're involved in that. It's probably easy to say what we're not. We're not mechanical or fabrication or civil or construction type engineering solutions company. We're really in a game of high valuating systems. For example, just in the last couple of months, we've picked up a contract with the Air Force to trial a technology of ours, which will take their whole national surveillance activity to another level. We're talking a real quantum change here. So the kinds of skill sets we have taken us to very remote locations in Australia for installation work, and also bringing together a bunch of hardware which we use our software engineers to actually talk with each other for a range of different systems. So very remote locations, aggressive time scales, and very exacting standards with defence. So we kind of it was a pretty easy leap for us to say, listen, we've got some really transferable skills that can be repurposed into probably the mining industry. So for us, when we'd heard about the coal supply chain panel, it was probably a good kind of a test or a gateway for us to test. So I think you said you were 2011, Jenny Lee. We were 2012. And for us it was great because there was the filtering, or what I call the vetting process that the panel did on us, and kind of a preparation as to what kinds of things we needed to look for in terms of the lingo even, because coming from defence and talking mining, it's a different language altogether. But not to be fearful of that. And also that it was our first little insight that perhaps mining wasn't at the level that we probably expected. It was much more agricultural than what we'd sort of come from in terms of our background. But it did provide that gateway. So when we went to present, we talked about some of the solutions we'd done, which straight away was lumped into products that we provided. So that was probably our first mistake. Then at the end of it, was probably in the last 5 minutes of presenting to the panel, it was, so what are you? What kind of products are you? Well, we're not. We're a solutions company. And it was at that stage that they actually started to talk about the problems that could have been experienced in the mining game. And from that, just from that last couple of minutes of the panel, we've had a number of conversations since, and I believe we're pretty close to a solution that is going to meet a crying need, particularly in the Hunter area, which will absolutely transform that problem. So,
Describe in your own words the effectiveness of the process, i.e. the capability sessions, the questionnaire, the panel session and the follow-up.
I found the process very useful in that they gave us a set of questions at the start, which I think you talked about before, and we were able to fill in the gaps in there in terms of our capability. It was really nice walking into a room of men with suits in the mining industry, of whom I had no affiliation with before that. I found the people in the session were quite appropriate. They seemed to be the people who could influence, if they weren't the decision makers, they were the ones who could influence the decision makers, so that the right people were in the room. It gave us an opportunity to express what we did, and like Boris and his company, we're also solutions providers in our space. By the way, we're not competitors. and it really helped us to crystallise really quickly whether we could, there was a good fit for us. At the time we were looking at, we're only a small company, at the time we were about 15, now we've grown to 35. At the time we were 15 people, we don't have a lot of resources for marketing, we don't have a lot of resources for business research, all those sorts of things. So it was a really good way of us to get in, have a quick look at mining, talk to the right people who could, as we spoke, they could map what they needed and join the dots for us and really find out if there was a fit for us right from the start. I think the benefit really came was that we realised there was no easy fit, and over time I think we could have done something, but we decided there and then, and Michael talked about in the previous session about the first step to innovation is figuring out who you are. It helped us figure out who we were. We realised that our forte is in keeping water away from electronics. So rather than going down the mining path, we went down the subsea oil and gas path and a whole heap of other things, but that shortcutted. So we really saved time, money and months of potentially wasted time by participating in that program.
Yeah, for us, in terms of that vetting process, it helped us to identify the delta in what we didn't have in the company and probably what wasn't really appropriate or necessary in the mining industry. With regards to follow-up, I was asked a couple of times afterwards, over the course of the next year, was there anything that could be done? At that stage, the conversations were progressing to the point where I couldn't see whether or not there was any value to any members of the panel getting involved. The panel themselves, the members, they were, I'm pretty sure, I'm just remembering the ones that we had on our particular day, because I believe there have been a number of different mix of panels. Is that right, Robert?
It's been pretty static, but we have got some new people now getting involved. So,
look, they're at a stage where they were, I'd call them eminent or preeminent in the domain. So they knew all their stuff and they could identify opportunities, which is what we couldn't do because we had no real prerequisite knowledge in the field. So the other thing that the panel brought was a degree of independence. So I felt comfortable that if I couldn't present a case to a particular operator or whatever, I could probably call upon the panel to help in that regard. Not that I've actually leveraged that, but I believe there could be that kind of activity that they could do.
All right, so I think you've answered some of the next question. We'll ask Jenny your thoughts on the quality of the panel members and their advice.
Not having known any of the people in the room beforehand was interesting for me, but as far as I could tell, they were each knowledgeable in their area, and like I said before, they could as we spoke about what we could do, you could see their minds ticking over about joining the dots, and some people got really creative around some of that and came up with some great ideas for inline pipe power generation, actually, that we might be interested in doing, and that's still an idea that's sitting in the background for us. So I thought that the people there were appropriate. It felt like that they could provide really good, sound advice, and as I said, it helped us crystallise that that mining just in terms of priorities wasn't a higher priority for us in the end, which was good.
Describe from your perspective what you got out of the process and the value of the advice that was provided, which I think you've probably answered a fair bit of that. But, so have there been any benefits to your company achieved post the panel session?
Yeah, very much so. So we've followed, I'd call it a textbook campaign in terms of for our kind of business and business model. So the problem with us is problems. Okay, so our business is all about solving problems and coming up with a solution that there's no one unique technology, the silver bullet solution for the whole thing. So we're about integrating a bunch of technologies together and engineering them so that they perform at a level or against requirements that meet an underlying business case. So our problem is not necessarily accessing people, but accessing and identifying what the problems are. So for us, that was a very first step. You could just see the light bulb moment with the panel that, yeah, actually there is a problem we're having, and it's in this particular area. I won't divulge at this point in time. And it was from that we were able to go forth and have the conversations. So in that regards, it was very useful. And are there any further questions after this? No. And that's where I think the panel can actually, it's reached a level in terms of usefulness here. I think it can go forth because it's probably established a degree of, how can I put it, rank, whether that's tacit or otherwise, within the region or within the field of the coal supply chain, in which it doesn't represent a particular vendor. So there's a degree of independence in which it can go and have some adult conversations with any of the number of the operators to find out what these problems are, because it's had a very broad cross view or lens, if you want, as to who the providers and suppliers are and what kind of issues they might be looking for to meet. And by the same token, it's also doing the filtering on behalf of the providers. In this case, it was Rio Tinto with Greg Carson. So there's a lot of benefit to the operators as well in using the panel. So they don't have suppliers annoying them, knocking on their door all the time, say, we've got a solution to this, we've got a solution to this. In fact, it can actually move it higher up into the value chain to say, well, do you know what, we've got an idea you've got problems that you don't even know you've got. And if we're bringing together the right people that we've had a view on, you can actually start having those conversations to get further up. You're all about in the game now of optimising operations and improving efficiencies and everything like that, because the good old days have passed us. So that's where I think it can go. I think it's got off to a great start. Yeah, that's my two bobs anyway.
Anything else you'd like to add, Jenny?
No.
Finished? Okay. Could you please join me in thanking Boris and Jenny? So we say innovation is about looking at things through different lenses, and both Jenny and Boris's companies are basically in the defence industry, so it was very interesting for them to come along to a panel session that was run to look at issues in the resource sector or find opportunities in that resource sector. So it was a great opportunity for them to meet the people, understand what the needs were, which they could have spent a long time and a lot of money finding out whether they had a fit or not. And I think, as Jenny said, they realised that probably didn't have a real good fit and they didn't want to spend the time and the money at that time. So we saved them a lot of heartache going down and trying to understand whether they could fit in the supply chain in some way. Boris also talked about looking at solving problems in the resource sector. Well, HunterNet actually have a workshop coming up on the 23rd of May. Exactly that. We're bringing our members together to try and workshop and understand whether or not, how can we as a group solve some of their problems. So, yeah, we're looking forward to that and we'll see what comes from it. So where do we go from here? We now have Glencore participating in the program. We're endeavouring to get Centennial Coal and BHP engaged. We're having those conversations now. And given the successes of the program, you know, they're very interested. In the power industry, we have a relationship with Vales Point Power Station, but we have to get better engaged with the other generators. We want to see a robust panel structure for the power industry and clean technology that provides benefits back to members. We need to get finalisation and signed off documentation of the model that allows it to be transferred to other industry sectors or other regions. This is not something that we want to hold on to. This is something we want industry to be able to go and take it anywhere in the country to help business. So today you've learned about an innovative program being administered here in the Hunter by HunterNet, developed by HunterNet and Enterprise Connect, and now being funded by Coal and Allied. You have learned about the process and the quantity of companies that have benefit, and you have heard about the project from participants in the project. It would be remiss of me if I didn't mention our project manager, Michael Murray, who's just presented here in the last session. He administers the program on behalf of HunterNet. So I'd just like to thank the organisers of the Innovation Festival for allowing me to participate this afternoon. And thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for coming along to listen this afternoon. Thank you very much.